In this video, we are going to talk about the last item related to negation, to the topic or the subject of negation in English, which is negation of modal auxiliaries. So before we start explaining the modal auxiliaries and how can we negate them, or what are the negative meanings that they can have in sentences, it is very important to know these three things or notes. First of all, the negation of modal auxiliaries requires some attention, in that here there is a scope of negation. The scope of negation may or may not include the meaning of the auxiliary itself. So again, you see we are going to go back to deal with the scope of negation. Okay, so when I have a modal or I use a modal auxiliary in my sentence, the scope of negation may either include the modal auxiliary itself, okay? So the modal auxiliary can either be within the scope of negation, and here in this way it is going to have a negative meaning, or it can be left or kept outside the scope of negation, and here it is going to have a positive meaning. Is it clear? So please pay attention to this. Consequently, we are going to have two types of negation in relation to modal auxiliaries. Either we are going to deal with either auxiliary negation or main verb negation. Okay, so if I say that there is auxiliary negation in this sentence, this means that the modal auxiliary is going to be included within the scope of negation. So it is going to be what? Negative. But if I say this sentence has main verb negation, this means that the auxiliary is kept outside, the modal auxiliary is kept outside the scope of negation. It is not included within it, so it is going to be what? Positive. And here what I want to negate in this sentence is the main verb, not the auxiliary. Okay, so please try to differentiate when we are going to explain the modal auxiliaries and their meanings. We are going to see these two types of negation. We are going to deal with these two terms, auxiliary negation and main verb negation. With the auxiliary negation, this means that the modal auxiliary is used or is going to be included within the scope of negation, so it is going to be negative. But if I am saying that in this sentence there is main verb negation, this means that the modal auxiliary is outside the scope of negation. The scope of negation starts from not itself to the end of the sentence, and here we are negating the main verb and not the auxiliary. Okay, now you know that we have different forms for the modal auxiliaries, and these modal auxiliaries can be either in their present or past forms or past tense. Okay, so when we are going to explain the modal auxiliaries, we are going to show you that they can appear in both present and past tense. What about the meanings or the negative meaning for these two tenses? You are going to see that they are similar. So the past tense negative modal auxiliaries follow the same negative pattern as their negative present tense equivalents. Okay? So if we start with the first modal auxiliaries that we are going to deal with here, they are the modal auxiliaries can and could. So can is in this modal auxiliary is used in the present form, while could is the past form of can. You know that can and could have three meanings, or can be used to refer to or indicate or explain three meanings: ability, permission, and possibility. Okay, so you see here these modal auxiliaries, these two modal auxiliaries can and could, with all their three meanings, they follow one pattern in negation, which is what? Which is auxiliary negation. So again, what does it mean, auxiliary negation? It means that the modal auxiliary is going to be included within the scope of negation. The scope of negation in this negative sentence that has the modal auxiliary can or could starts from the auxiliary itself. Okay, from can or could to the end of the sentence. For example, if I am using can to express the meaning of ability. For example, he cannot speak English. He cannot speak English. Can here is used in this sentence to refer to ability. Now, when I say he cannot, now the scope of negation starts from can itself, from the modal auxiliary can to the end of the sentence, to the what, to the word English. So the meaning of the sentence is what? He is not able to. You see, he is not able to. Okay? The same thing when I say he couldn't. Okay? He could not or couldn't play the banjo. So here again I have auxiliary negation, which means that the scope of negation starts from could, the modal auxiliary could to the end of the sentence, and the meaning is he was not able to. Permission. When I say you cannot go swimming, can here is used to refer or to give us the meaning of permission. You are not allowed. So when I say you are not allowed, this means that I am including can within the scope of negation. So this is auxiliary negation. They could not smoke in the theater. Okay, I am here using could to express or to give us the meaning of permission, and I want to say that they are or they were not allowed to, not allowed, okay, not permitted. So here the could is used within the scope of negation, and here we have auxiliary negation. The last meaning is possibility. Can and could both are used to what, to express the meaning of possibility. For example, you can't be serious, okay, or the road could not be blocked. So here both of can and could, they are included within the scope of negation. So we are having the meaning or we are having the case or pattern of auxiliary negation. So here the meaning of the sentence, it is not possible. You see, not possible. This is the negation of possibility. Not possible that you are serious, or it was not possible that the road was blocked or was closed. So please remember, can and could, they both follow one pattern in negation, which is auxiliary negation, which means that they are going to be included within the scope of negation, and here we are negating their meanings. And you know that can and could, they are both used to express or to refer to three important types of modal meanings, which are ability, permission, and possibility. If we move to another modal auxiliary, which is may, and the past form of may is might, okay, we know that may or might, they are used to express two meanings, either permission, to give permission, or to talk or about possibility. Okay, here you are going to see there is a difference between the two meanings. When I am using may or might to give permission, okay, in a negative sentence, here I am having what, auxiliary negation, which means that the auxiliary may or might is going to be included within the scope of negation. The scope of negation will start from the auxiliary may or might to the end of the sentence. So you may not go swimming, it means that you are not allowed to go swimming, okay? They might not smoke in the theater, they are or they were not allowed to smoke in the theater. But when we go to the meaning of possibility, we are going to see a different pattern of negation. It is going to be main verb negation. Why? Because here the auxiliary may or might is not going to be within the scope of negation. It's going to be outside it. So the meaning is going to be positive. Here I am negating the main verb and not the auxiliary. For example, they may not bother to come if it is raining. Okay, they may not bother to come if it is raining, or they might not bother to come if it is raining. Here may or might are used to what, to express possibility. So when they are used to express possibility, the scope of negation will start from the negative word not to the end of the sentence. So may and might are going to be left out or kept out outside the scope of negation, so they are going to be positive. So the meaning of may or might, it is going to be it is possible. You see, it is possible. When I go it is possible, this means that the meaning is positive. So it is possible that they will not bother. You see, I am negating what? I am negating the verb bother, not bother. While the meaning of may and might, which is possibility, it is what? It is positive, it is possible, or it was possible. So here, may and might, they have two types, or they reflect for us, or they show us the two patterns of negation, the main verb negation and the auxiliary negation. If we are using them to express permission, here we have auxiliary negation, but if we are using them to express possibility, we have main verb negation. Okay, another modal auxiliary with its past form is shall and should. Shall is the present form and should is the past form. We know that shall and should, they are used to express different meanings. For example, if we start with shall is used to express willingness or intention on the part of the speaker. For example, don't worry, you shan't lose your reward. Here I am using shall. Please pay attention to this sentence. I am using shall with you, and you are going to tell me how come. Because I have learned that shall is only used with I and we. Here, this is correct if we are talking about shall as an auxiliary that reflects or talks about the future. Okay, so if you are using shall as an auxiliary for in the future tense, here you are going to be correct. You are going to say that we use it only with I and we. But if we are talking about shall as a modal auxiliary, here you can use it with any type or with any form of a pronoun, a subject pronoun. So here, as a modal auxiliary shall, it means willingness or intention on the part of the speaker. So here, the intention in the sentence is not for the subject, but for the speaker, for the one who said the sentence, which is different from the subject. Okay, so don't worry, you shan't lose your reward. The subject is you, but the intention is mine. I am the speaker of the sentence. I am the one who said the sentence. So it is my intention, my willingness, not the subject, which is you. Okay, so here I am having what? I am having main verb negation, which means that shall here is going to be outside the scope of negation, and the scope of negation starts from not to the end of the sentence. I am negating the verb. So the meaning of a sentence is I am willing or I intend. You see, I intend or I am willing that you don't lose your reward. Is it clear? So he's here, we are negating the verb and not the auxiliary. Also, as a modal auxiliary, shall is used to express prediction, expectation, telling what will happen in the future. Okay, so for example, I shan't know you when you return. Again, when we are using shall to give us the meaning of a prediction as a modal auxiliary to express a prediction, again we are having what? Main verb negation, which means that the meaning of a prediction here is going to be positive. Why? Because shall is outside the scope of negation. The scope of negation starts from not to the end of the sentence, and we are negating the verb. So here it is what? Main verb negation. So the meaning of the sentence is I predict that, you see, I predict, I shall, it means I predict that I will not know you when you return. If we go to should in its past form is used to express logical necessity. Okay, logical necessity, or sometimes we call it obligation. So, for example, we say, sorry, you shouldn't go there. You shouldn't go there. Again, when you are using should to express obligation or logical necessity, again we are having what? Main verb negation, which means that should is outside the scope of negation, is going to be what? Positive. So the meaning of the sentence is what? It is necessary. It is advisable. You see, I didn't say it is not necessary. If I say it is not necessary, this means I am negating should. But here, should not be, or it must not be what? Negative. It is what? Positive. So we say it is necessary. It is advisable that you will not go there. You see, here we are negating what? The main verb. Again, Should as a modal auxiliary is used to express a prediction, just like shall. So I shouldn't be here when you return. Again, we have what? Main verb negation. Should is positive. It means I predict. So I should, this means I predict. Not be here, here, so I will not be here. I am what? I am negating the main verb. Okay, another modal auxiliary is will in the present form and would in its past form. So you see here, will and would, they are both used to express three different meanings: willingness, insistence, and prediction. And of course, who is going to be willing or insisting or predicting? It is the subject of the sentence. As you see here from this table, that both of will and would in all these three meanings, they have only one pattern in negation, which is the main verb negation, which means that the main verb is going to be negated while the auxiliary is going to be kept outside the scope of negation. Okay, outside, it is outside the scope of negation, so it is going to be positive. The meaning of the modal auxiliary is going to be positive, while the meaning of the main verb is going to be negative, because the main verb, it is only the main verb that is within the scope of negation. For example, don't worry, I won't interfere. So here, the meaning of this is the meaning of willingness. The meaning of I won't, it means I am willing. You see, it means I am willing. So the meaning of the modal auxiliary is positive. But not here is going to negate what? It is going to negate the main verb, not to interfere, not to interrupt, for example. Okay? The same thing when we are saying with it with would. I wouldn't interfere. It means I was willing. I would means I was willing. Not interfere means not to interfere. Insistence, again we have main verb negation. He won't do what he's told. He won't do what he's told. So who is insisting here? It is he, the subject of the sentence. Okay? So does he insist? Yes, he insists. So the meaning of will here is what is positive. He insists. But what about the main verb? The main verb is negative. Not. He insists on not doing what he's told. The same meaning or the same pattern, we find it with would. They wouldn't stop smoking. They wouldn't stop smoking. So here the meaning of insistence here is what is positive. So they insisted. Is it clear? While the main verb stop smoking, it is what negative, or not or not to stop smoking. If we come to prediction, the third meaning for will and would, we say they won't have arrived yet. They won't have arrived yet. So who is predicting? It is me, the subject, sorry, the speaker of the sentence. I say I predict. You see, I predict. And when I say I predict, this means that the meaning of will as which is a prediction is what is positive. So I predict that they have not arrived yet. So arrived as a main verb, it is what negative, while the auxiliary is what is positive, because it is kept outside the scope of negation. The same thing when we find it with would. He wouldn't come. He wouldn't come. So I predicted. You see, I predicted that he would not come. Now we come to must, and please pay attention to must, because you are going to see something different here. Must as a modal auxiliary has or can be used to express two meanings, either obligation or logical necessity. When we are using must to express obligation, here we are having the main verb negation. So you mustn't keep us all waiting. Here we are in fact negating the main verb and not the auxiliary, because the auxiliary must is going to be put outside the scope of negation. The scope of negation starts from not to the end of the sentence. So You mustn't keep us all waiting. It means you are obliged. You see, the meaning of you must means you are obliged. While not is used to what? To negate the main verb, not to keep us waiting. As a logical necessity modal auxiliary, we cannot use must in the negative form. And instead we have to use can't. Okay, so please pay attention to this. This is very important. When you want to express logical necessity by using must, you can use must only in what? In positive sentences. But when you change the sentence into negative, you have to replace or to use can't instead of must. So can't is used in this sense instead. For example, there must be a mistake. There must be a mistake. You see here, this sentence is positive. And that's why I use what must to express the meaning of logical necessity. But when I want to change the sentence into a negative, I cannot say there mustn't be a mistake. No, I have to use can't instead of must. So the sentence in the negative becomes there can't be a mistake. Okay, this is a very important note about the use of must in the negative sentences when it means logical necessity. Finally, we have the modal auxiliaries ought to, and need. Ought to and need. Now, when we are using them in the negative, which meanings or which pattern we are going to have? So if we start with ought to in the negative, it becomes ought not to or oughtn't to. Okay? Need in the negative, it becomes need not or needn't. Now, what are the meanings we use to express or we use these two modal auxiliaries to express? They are what again? Obligation and necessity. They are used, these two modal auxiliaries, they are used to express either obligation or necessity. So, when I am talking about ought to, here in the two meanings, whether obligation or necessity, I am following one pattern, which is what? Main verb negation. Okay, main verb negation. So ought to is going to be kept outside the scope of negation. It is going to be what? Positive, while the main verb is going to be within the scope of negation. So we are having what? Main verb negation. So, and to give us the meaning of negation, obligation, for instance, we say you oughtn't to keep us waiting, which means you are obliged. You see, you are obliged. This is obligation, not to keep us waiting. Necessity, he oughtn't to be long. It is necessary. You see, it is necessary that he is not long. So with ought to, with it in its two meanings, obligation and necessity, we are following what? Main verb negation. Let us go to need and to see whether need is going to be similar or different from ought to. With need here, again, we are having the two meanings, the same two meanings, obligation and necessity. But when we are going to negate them, to negate these two meanings, we are going to have what? Auxiliary negation, you see? So need in the negative sentences as a modal auxiliary is different from ought to, because we are having what? Auxiliary negation, which means that a need is going to be within the scope of negation. It is going to have a negative meaning. So the scope of negation with the sentences that has need as a modal auxiliary starts from need itself to the end of the sentence. For example, to express obligation, we say, for instance, you needn't pay that fine. So what does it mean? It means you are not obliged. You see, you are not obliged. Try to differentiate, to compare it with ought to. When we use ought to express obligation, you see, in the above example with ought to, we say you are obliged, because ought to was what? Put outside the scope of negation, so we say its meaning is positive, so we say you are obliged. But needn't, because need is going to be included in the scope of negation, it is going to have a negative meaning, so it becomes you are not obliged to pay that fine. Okay, again, we can use need to express what? To express necessity. So again, when you are using need as a modal auxiliary to express negation, to express necessity, when you negate such a sentence, the need is going to be included within the scope of negation. It is going to have a negative meaning. So the meaning of need as necessary, it is going to be not necessary. So we have what? Auxiliary negation. For example, it needn't always be my fault. So it means it is not necessary that it is my fault. You see, not necessary. So the meaning of need is negative. So with this, we have finished talking about the different modal auxiliaries that we have in English, and with their meanings in in the negative sentences, and the patterns that we should follow with each one of them. Okay, thank you.